You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1926. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This broadcast was aired 28th of October 1926.
I'd like to write a movie plot for which the crowds would clamor, of love and hate and webs of fate, a good old melodrama. There, I'm glad that's off my mind, announced my next-door neighbor. It takes lots of effort to write that kind of a poem. I should think it would, I agree, and nerve too. What are you going into the movie business for anyhow, and why do you want to write a melodrama? Because, explained my finicky next-door neighbor, because I want to make Cousin Mehitable Green the villain. Have you ever watched Cousin Mehitable Green make a bed? Oh, it's terrible. The bed is made with one fell swoop. Her children always get out on the wrong side because there isn't any right side. No wonder they're cross and peevish all day. It's outrageous. Aunt Sammy, will you do me a favor? Will you please broadcast the correct way to make a bed? Cousin Mehitable Green might be listening. Please, for the sake of those poor children who sleep night in and night out on sheets as rough as washboards. But look here, I protested. I'm sorry for the children and all that, but what's so difficult about making a bed? Just so it's comfortable and neat and... That's the point, exclaimed my next-door neighbor. Go on and tell Cousin Mehitable Green just how to make a bed. I hope you women won't mind if I take about 1 minute to tell Cousin Mehitable how to make a bed. You see how it is. I can't very well refuse. The first thing you want to do, Cousin Mehitable, is to straighten the mattress pad so that it lies smooth and without wrinkles. Over this, spread the undersheet, right side up, with the hem at the head, the center of the sheet, on the center of the bed. Remember that the comfort of a bed depends in a large measure on tucking in the undersheet so securely that it remains smooth and straight. Making mitered corners is one of the best ways of doing this. Anyone who has had nurse's training can show you how to make mitered corners, Cousin Mehitable. Next, put on the upper sheet right side down. Don't forget to allow for a generous turnover at the head. Tuck the sheet in at the foot, using mitered corners again. Sheets should be from 24 to 36 inches wider and longer than the mattress, so the ends and sides can be tucked in, and the top of the upper sheet turned down to protect the blankets. Pat on the blankets so that their top edge comes about 9 inches below the head of the bed. Turn the upper sheet back and tuck in all the edges. Last of all, put on the spread. Draw it smooth and straight and arrange the pillows. What's that? Of course, it takes more time than just spreading the covers back on the bed, but think how much more rested one feels after sleeping in a comfortable bed. There's another thing I might mention too. When you get up in the mornings, be sure that your window is opened and your bedding pulled apart so that both covers and mattress will air thoroughly. There, I've done at least one good deed today. I hated to think of those poor children who spend more than 1/3 of every 24 hours in bed, sleeping on wrinkled sheets. I hope Cousin Mehitable has bed springs that don't sag in the middle and good, comfortable mattresses. I wonder if she known that a slip-on cover of unbleached muslin is excellent for keeping the mattress clean. I won't spend any more time on her today, however. I must answer these questions and tell you what to have for dinner. It's a good dinner, mock duck, and candied sweet potatoes, and, well, you'll know the rest in a few minutes. We're launching into the subject of meat today. A listener from the East asked just what is meant by hamburger-style steak. She also wants to know whether it is better to buy chopped meat already chopped or to have it chopped in her presence. A meat specialist told me something about meat yesterday. Hamburger-style steak, he says, is chopped by hand or by machine before cooking. It is usually cut from less tender parts of the beef carcass. For instance, the round of some carcasses is inclined to be tough, though excellent in flavor.
Also, the round is not marbled with fat, or in other words, has no fat scattered through it, as have the porterhouse and the sirloin. When beef round is chopped, some sweet flavored suet can be added to it. When cooked, these particles of fat, well mixed with the lean, help to keep the meat juicy. Chopped round steak may therefore be more tender and more juicy than the same meat cooked as flat steak. Now as to the second part of the question. If you are a critical housewife, and most of us are, where food is concerned, you'll want to buy your meat and have it ground by the butcher in your presence. Then you'll be sure you are not getting just any kind of chopped, lean meat that isn't particularly usable in other ways. A little veal or pork added to well-flavored and tender round cuts makes a chopped meat that is palatable and easy to cook. 2 more questions before we get to the menu. First, what varieties of apples are best for making pies? It's hard to say what varieties of apples are best for making pies, as this varies with locality and season of the year. For pies, you will want a medium tart apple that cooks easily. Grimes Golden, Gravenstein, and Jonathan are all excellent for pies. By the way, next week is National Apple Week. I'm collecting some apple recipes for you, an apple recipe a day, and all of them vouched for by the Bureau of Home Economics. Next question. Are the leaf stalks or leaves around a head of cauliflower good for cooking? Carefully trimmed and cut into short pieces, the leaf stalks make a very palatable dish. As to the leaves, if there aren't enough to cook and serve separately, the leaves and stalks, boiled until tender and seasoned, can be served as a garnish along with the head of the cauliflower. An English custom is to cook a small cauliflower without trimming off the leaves and stalks if they are in good condition. Now, the menu. Mock duck, 5-minute cabbage, candied sweet potatoes, and stuffed tomato salad. Mock duck, as you may have guessed, is not duck at all, but a flank steak, masquerading as a duck. The steak will be stuffed and rolled, braised in a covered roasting pan, and served with gravy. When it comes to the table, it looks like a duck, a neat brown roll, dressed with sprigs of parsley. Flank steak is one of the least expensive cuts of meat. It has no bones, and as there is little fat or waste on it, 2 pounds will be enough for the average family. Be sure the butcher does not score the meat, that is, cut the surface. Cutting the surface merely lets most of the delicious meat juices escape into the pan. The result is a dry and tasteless dish. If you have your pencils and paper handy, I'll tell you exactly how to prepare mock duck. Select a flank steak weighing 2 to 3 pounds. Make a stuffing of the following ingredients. 1½ cups stale breadcrumbs, 1 teaspoon salt, half a teaspoon pepper, 1 onion minced, and a ½ cup chopped celery, 2 tablespoons butter or 1/4 cup finely chopped, salt pork. Brown the celery and the onion lightly in the fat. Then mix the ingredients lightly, combining them with a fork. Spread the stuffing over the steak. Roll the steak crosswise, not lengthwise, and tie it in 2 or 3 places with clean string. Roll the outside of the mock duck in flour, then sear the surface in a small amount of fat in a baking pan. Add more flour if necessary, so there'll be enough for brown gravy. When the meat is thoroughly seared on all sides, add a cup of water, cover closely, and cook until tender. This takes about 1½ hours. Add more water if necessary when making your gravy. When the meat is done, mix 2 tablespoons of fat with an equal amount of flour, add the liquor from the pan, and enough water to make as much gravy as you need. If the steak had fat on it, there may be enough fat and also flour in the pan to make the gravy without adding any other. Once more, let me caution you about rolling the steak, so when it's carved you cut crosswise through the grain. It's the same principle as carving a ham across, not with the tougher fibers. The 5-minute cabbage was described yesterday. Next on the list, candied sweet potatoes. I told the recipe specialist how I prepare candied sweet potatoes, but my way wasn't good enough.
Look here, Aunt Sammy,
She said,
candied sweet potatoes are good cooked most any way, but they're an ornament to the table, and a temptation to the palate when they're cooked this way.
And this is her method. Select 6 medium-sized sweet potatoes, uniform in size if possible. Partially cook the unpeeled sweet potatoes in boiling water, cool, and skin. Cut the potatoes in halves lengthwise or in 3 pieces if the potatoes are large enough. Put in a greased baking dish large enough for just 1 layer, not packing too closely. Make a syrup by boiling 1 cupful of corn syrup, a 1/4 teaspoon salt, 2 tablespoons or more of butter, and a 1/2 cup brown sugar. The syrup should be fairly thick. Pour the syrup over the potatoes and place them in the oven to brown. Turn them very carefully. The potatoes may be served in the baking dish if it's that kind of a dish. We don't need a dessert today, but we do want a good crisp salad. What better than tomatoes stuffed with a little green pepper and tender pieces of celery left over from the mock duck? Serve on crisp lettuce leaves. Use your favorite salad dressing, a colorful combination, even if it's not original. Red and green reminds me that the number of shopping days until Christmas grows smaller day by day. To repeat the menu, mock duck, 5-minute cabbage, candied sweet potatoes, and stuffed tomato salad. Add a little tart jelly to this menu, and it's complete. If you can't get fresh tomatoes for the salad, there are grapefruit on the market. Tomorrow, special recipes for Halloween. They will also be included in the radio cookbooks. I wish you'd let me know whether you've tried the recipes and what you think of them. Perhaps you can suggest other recipes you'd like to have added to the cookbooks. And if you haven't already done so, write for Aunt Sammy's radio cookbook. It's free for the asking.
This broadcast was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.